Welcome to a solo and live episode of Irresponsibly Long. What's up, Matt? What's up, Poog? What is up, Leon? Alan Bryce in the chat. Love it. Just tweak a couple things here with the stream and should be good. All right. So Eric couldn't make it today, but had to get you guys an episode. I hope it's good. Matt, we're back, but BTC isn't. Yeah, let's talk about that. BTC chart looks pretty good, huh? I need a professional TA analyst in the chat. Do you guys think this looks good? It's a good looking chart to you guys? No? It is Wednesday, February 26th, as we're recording this. Had a bit of a breakdown on BTC. Had Nvidia earnings today. A new announcement from Trump. Going to talk about all of that. GM, Corby, GM, Jinsinius, how you guys doing? You guys at ETH Denver? As you can tell, I didn't quite make it to ETH Denver today, but I'm gonna try to get out there tomorrow. So hopefully it's good. Yes, this chart is an inverse of my cortisol levels. That's accurate, guys. All right. Well, let's kind of take you through what's been going on, my generalized thoughts on the market. It's been a wild ride in the Trump admin. We had a great couple first months there, but it's been basically pain and suffering since December. And crypto is not alone in that. BTC until recently was actually holding up a little better even than the stock market. Stock's looking a little rough too. I don't think the market has enjoyed the Trump mercurial tariff stuff. Will he, won't he? Looks like he did tariff Europe today, and the market did not like that. But let's pull up the charts first. So let's talk about the stock market. So stocks not looking great, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. We've got a gigantic area of demand right about here, the mid-range of which is about 19K. We sort of broke above, kind of consolidating above this zone, but I'm not seeing a lot of strength here. Like, yes, it is possible we could hold this as support and go higher, but we've kind of put in a bit of a double top here, and then a pretty impulsive move down so far after that double top on the daily. So if we come back inside the range here, I'm expecting this to maybe go towards 19K, which wouldn't be like an insane move. What is that? That is about 9% from here. The hope would be that that holds. If that doesn't hold, we've kind of lost structure altogether in the market. I think 17.3 is your structural low here. So if you're generally bullish on equities and you do get this move down to 19.2, I think this is probably a good time to buy stuff. Generally of the mindset that stuff probably isn't going to completely melt down, but open to the idea that it might. What is the trade here? Well, in the Magic Lines Discord, I shared that I had entered a short on the NASDAQ via options, just trying to hedge out some of my portfolio. Basically sold a call spread up here. Here, I'll show you on QQQ, because I did this on QQQ, not the NASDAQ futures. So QQQ, I believe I sold 540, sold 540 and bought 550. So this is a credit spread here. Sold those strikes. And then I basically bought puts 480, I believe. So basically this is a quote unquote, it's not free. It's not free, but like my risk is sort of limited to this move up here, and then use the proceeds to buy this. So if we tank, it will be covered. The other trade I shared with you guys last week, TLT is looking pretty saucy. TLT, those of you guys in the know this is the 20-year plus bond ETF. You know, things get a little shaky in the economy. Rates tend to go down on the long end, and that makes price go up. So this was an interesting zone for me. We were in a multi-year kind of accumulation base. Looked like we put in a double bottom on the weekly. Had a little breakout here of the meme trend line. You had some bullish divergence here on the RSI coming into these lows as well, which you can see. Yeah, right. So this trade looks pretty good. So the portfolio right now is basically hedged with a heavy cash position, most of which is in TLT. I have some TLT calls, and I've got the NASDAQ shorts on the board right now via those options. So sort of unbothered, moisturized in my lane, chilling right now. On the crypto front, you know, things haven't been great in Bitcoin. So I want to first acknowledge that after a nice streak of trades on Bitcoin, I did not get this recent move right. Long the bottom of the range a couple times successfully, but we have now broken down. I drew this. This is a little bar pattern here. So this is basically like maybe a preview of the future. You know, just rerun what happened there last year, and then up. This is probably like the most hopeful scenario I have right now. So a few scenarios when you get a breakdown like this, you know, your first hope is that you're just sort of making a move towards the mid-range, which is around 79.2. Maybe rebalancing some of these inefficiencies. You know, so sometimes you get a little quick breakdown from a range, rebalance, reclaim the range, and then you go, right? So that's option number one. I think this is probably the least likely option right now, but I'm open to the idea that it might happen. As far as I'm concerned, on the weekly, right? We've sort of broken this weekly structure, right? Similar to what we did here. This really threw a lot of people off because after, you know, these breaks, you know, maybe you didn't consider this one a break. I didn't really consider this one to be a break for various reasons, but nonetheless, after that move, we got a 27% up move. And then after what was definitely a break, we got a 30% bounce. So two pretty big moves to the upside after breaking out of the range, before ultimately having that final capitulation bottom. And then we continued upwards, right? So price doesn't just go in one direction normally, right? Typically it moves in waves. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. Like I'm not expecting this to go straight to 60K or anything, although I suppose it is theoretically possible. I think that there's some areas of interest here to kind of zoom in a little bit to see them, but you had a little 4-hour zone somewhere over here around 980K or so. I think there's a pretty good chance that this is where price maybe finds a temporary bottom around 80K. It's possible we bounce here as well. You can see we're at the mid-range of the previous quarter. We have swept a whole bunch of liquidity here, right? So I have been buying down here. I've got some bids set 80K as well. I really do not want to see any closes below this 3-day gap here. And ideally we would close this current candle in an hour or so above the mid-range of the gap, kind of respect that imbalance. Because I'm expecting that we get some sort of bounce, whether that be around here. This is probably my base case, similar to what we did last time. So a few levels to watch out for on that bounce. You've got the yearly open here around 93K. Probably first target. Current year mid-range, and then also this order block here. Pretty key area of supply. That's the supply that gave you the break. So that's 93.4 to 98K. I think it's even possible that price comes up here, maybe even runs this high and then comes back down, right? Hard to know exactly where you're going to retrace to, but those are sort of the main levels I'm looking to probably sell a bounce from. Reg domain. So base case it's all over. I don't think 4-year cycles are really a thing anymore. If we're talking about where we can go to, right? Like I kind of have like two main targets that I'm looking at. I think that, these range highs here, this is about 71K. That's an interesting level. This demand kind of right at the range, like you got to think there's going to be a lot of bids there. So at a minimum, I would expect like a pretty huge bounce from that level. It's always possible that you kind of like re-enter the range. And if so, then all of this like kind of internal range of liquidity becomes a target. I think a worst case scenario is probably, I guess the worst case scenario is always 0, but worst case scenario, maybe 58, 59K or so. Again, like even if this plays out, this is let me see. This is only 35% to the top of the range, right? So this is basically the pullback you get like multiple times per bull market, right? Like you got that. We've been very spoiled on Bitcoin, right? But even this pullback here, right? This was 32%. This one's not as severe, but still more than we've had. That was 26% right there. This one, we did a full 50%, 55%, and then went back to all-time highs again. I think the fear is definitely that we kind of do this fractal again. Like this would suck. This kind of like double top thing. So like you can imagine we go down here and there's tons of buying demand and we go woo all the way back up, but then and if that if that were to play out, that would be really bad because then you'd be looking at probably like 40K ultimately, right? So that's a potential scenario you got to keep in mind. This is the hardest period of time like I've ever really traded in because it's just so hard to like it's not easy mode. Not only are some of the like the macro factors kind of weird, and are we on the verge of a recession, or are we about to like overheat again? Like it seems like people are strongly mixed on both of these scenarios. And then on top of it, you have the orange man in the White House who is just like slapping tariff, just 25% tariff on Europe today. Boom. And that caused like the sell-off we saw this morning. So there's this kind of like will he, won't he thing going on all the time. And it makes trading very, very difficult. I still think the long-term picture for Bitcoin looks really, really, really good. And I'm happy to buy this thing like all the way down because like I'm happy to hold it for 10 years. But other coins, I'm not so happy to get caught in a drawdown on them. So like my portfolio has been like almost entirely Bitcoin. There's been some kind of suit pro-regulatory coins like I've been building positions over time in, but they're almost like not even large enough to warrant commentary, because they're just so small compared to everything else. And the reason is like I don't feel like getting stuck with them and eating a draw. Like ETH is a good idea, is a good example of this, right? The problem with the ETH chart, as I see it, is that you have this like double top here. Could even maybe call this a triple top if you want. 3 attempts and a failure to get to all-time highs, right? And you have a bounce initially off this little supply area or demand zone, right? But you have this like enormous area of demand sitting below this consolidation, right? So this could go all the way down to, 15, 16K. And it's not that bad, I guess, buying here at 23 because, yeah, I guess if you really like ETH and you're a long-term believer in this, it's not that big of a deal to eat like a 20, 30% drawdown for crypto. That's kind of par for the course. But like, I find it very hard to believe that we're just going to turbo to the upside here and leave like all of these bids like unfilled down here. And this is something like Ben Cohen has commented on, the idea of like, well, ETH can't truly rise until it goes home. And I think like home to him is a logarithmic regression band, but home to me is this sort of like root unmitigated demand. And it's like really close. Like you might even consider this to be unmitigated down here. Like, that's a possibility too. And that's, you're talking like 1300s or so. So couple areas where buyers didn't quite get a chance to bid. This one I'm unsure of because we did come out of the zone and kind of tap back into it here. So a bit of a coin flip for me whether we go there, but like certainly there's a lot of demand below us. Would not shock me to see a move up for ETH, but then ultimately like I don't know if we have the fuel to just straight capitulate there right now. Like we liquidated so many people around here and tapped into quite a substantial amount of demand. I don't know who the forced sellers are going to be here. Like, of course, if things like really go south, like that'll happen. But typically you'll see price kind of move back up, get some more buyers on board. And then when you run into a wall again, then you kind of take those out and there's your bottom. So kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen here. A reg domain based on the chart, buying ETH under your yellow moving average is rational. It's an absolutely disgusting chart. Seems on the edge of disaster. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff you can long in the world. And this chart is like, it's sketch. It's just sketch because you just have this freaking ticking time bomb below you. You don't want to be longing with a bunch of like unmitigated demand underneath your position because price tends to ultimately want to go and seek that liquidity before it goes higher. Like how many people are going to be like really, like we bounced to like 2,900, like how many people are going to be like really thrilled to all in ETH 2,900 to maybe have a chance of breaking 5? It's just not that attractive. But if this capitulates down to 1,500 and then people are thinking, oh, I get like a 3x on my money, to go to all-time highs. I can go 15 to 45. That's attractive. And then if you start thinking about, further upside, that's attractive, but it's just, it's like, it's iffy here. And yeah, the 200 week, although we've lost it in the past, it's always served as this sort of like, you accumulate below, go back up, accumulate below, go back up, accumulate below, turbo back up. So yeah, maybe this is the same thing. Maybe there's just some dips here over the summer, little accumulation below the 200 week, and then maybe we go. That would be the optimistic scenario. GM Larry, you think the local bottom is in? Yeah, I think a local bottom for Bitcoin is close. I don't know if I'm going to call it to the tick, but I think it's close. I got a little ahead of my skis this morning, longing some stuff, and then I got the Trump tariff tweet, and then I had to snap close a bunch of positions. But I'm actually of the mindset right now that altcoins look like pretty good, and this is one of those things that always runs the risk of aging super terribly. But I think there's actually a lot of reasons to be bullish on alts from here or close to here from like a trade perspective. If you look at the charts right now, the main thing I'm going to point you guys to is, actually, I've got this up right here. So this is the total 3 to BTC ratio. So this is a ratio of the market cap of all of the non-Ethereum altcoins versus BTC. And this is a useful metric because there's typically like a finite amount of money in crypto, and there's a money oscillating between, holding Bitcoin and holding all of the other trash. And it's interesting to think about like where that oscillator is on a timeline, right? So this is a weekly chart here. Couple of interesting things to note on the weekly chart for this ratio. First, where are we? We are basically sitting in the golden pocket, right? So that's your 0.618 to 0.79 fib, right? So if you're looking to take longs when you're trading, being in this portion of the range is generally a good idea to be looking to long out of, because your upside is a lot higher than your downside, and price is in a discount to the range. You want to be longing from a discount. That doesn't mean you're just automatically long from these levels, but it is typically a good area to look for long. So what else is happening at these levels? Like we have a year long, or is this actually this is a multi-year downtrend on the weekly, right? Followed by a multi-year divergence. You got a multi-year bull divergence here, multi-year bull div on the ratio, right? When I zoom in a little more on this chart, from a structural perspective, on the lower time frames, you could say that this move here broke structure to the upside. Price is basically retraced back to that demand. And although it put in a low, it put in a sweep, right? So on the weekly, you had a sweep of that election low. You had this sweep candle here on the weekly. So this is your sweep candle. And then what did we do? Did we have any sort of continuation? Well, no, actually, we traded into this weekly fair value gap here. So there's a weekly fair value gap. If we're bearish, price should move into this imbalance and continue lower, right? But we actually put in a bullish weekly candle. We close above this sweep candle, which in my mind is a pretty bullish sign. We dip back in this week, tag some of the wick, and now look what's happening, right? So Bitcoin looks like crap, but actually the ratio of everything looks quite good on the high time frame. And then if I zoom in a little more to like the hourly, I mean, like if I showed you this and asked you what the Bitcoin chart looked like, you would never tell me that Bitcoin looked like it just fell off a cliff. Like you wouldn't think that. But here we are, and here this is happening right now. Other interesting thing of note is that, looking at here, okay. So you guys remember we had the DeepSeek sell-off? The DeepSeek nuke in the market, right? Where was that? That was right here. We just put in a higher low. So you had the DeepSeek nuke, Bitcoin absolutely nukes out of the range, and then what do alts do? They put in a higher low, and then this is now happening. Now, I've been saying that alts don't look that bad for a while, and that wasn't necessarily a call to just run out and buy all of the altcoins you can, but like more an idea that like a lot of the selling appears to have been done with, right? And I think yesterday, the events of this week, they sort of confirm that in my mind. And if we look at various alt charts, like, you know, even Ethereum, which has just been like the shittiest alt of all time, right? Even Ethereum has put in a higher low off of the DeepSeek nuke, right? So you got relative strength there. What is doing well right now? Well, the stuff that's doing the best right now is memes. And it kind of makes sense that Bitcoin is puking and like memes are doing the best, right? Because Bitcoin sort of the very last asset to be sold, right? And then memes were one of the very first things to puke. So once it, like how many of you guys are just like balls long, like dog with hat still? Like nobody is, right? Everybody has just sold this shit into the ground. So these things can like be interesting assets to trade if we get some sort of tradable bounce. And it is my current framework that like we are going to get like probably a pretty significant bounce in altcoins across the board heading into March, and maybe that carries you over into April, and then maybe we get the very same sell in May, go away kind of thing, right? Maybe that happens again, and for some reason we convince ourselves it's different this time, but it's actually not different this time. It's worth noting that in the last bull run, a lot of stuff can happen in a span of a couple months, right? This was Ethereum, February 20th, right? Pretty close to today. 37% sell-off. What happened next? 235% to the upside by May. Pretty crazy. And because the price of Ethereum has barely moved in 3 years, I mean, the market cap of this, it's almost exactly the same. So, you know, I guess a similar magnitude move is possible. But we had a similar thing here early February. We had this puke, you know, 37%. Are we going to rip? It's possible. It's possible. Just want you guys to see like what is possible, what has happened before. You know, future events or past results are not indicative of future performance, obviously, but it's just more to show you the possibility. Now, I wouldn't be buying alts here and like holding them for generational longs if I were you. Like I think, you know, Ethereum, this chart is quite broken. The Solana chart is quite fucking broken, right? This chart is just murdered, right? But that doesn't mean you can't get bounces like all the way up into here and then back down. Like that can definitely happen. And that's a huge move. Like if that were to happen, it's double your money on Solana. Like these moves happen in altcoins all the time. And it's hard to trade, right? Because sometimes, a lot of the times, the bounce actually looks like this. And you get nothing and you eat it, but that's volatility for you. Now you guys know that if you've been listening to me, I've been quite fucking bearish on this asset for a while, and I was telling people that we were going to go here when we were up here. Now, yes, it's true that we ran the high first, but like ultimately I sold my bag up here in the 240s, and I avoided this chaos. Solana is probably interesting to me here. Like the way I see Solana right now is you've got kind of this range here from 128 to 200, right? Consolidate under all-time highs. You basically have this kind of double top mega deviation here above the range. You've got unmitigated demand below the range. I don't really want to be balls long in a range after sweeping an all-time high where we've got unmitigated demand below the range, right? So buys around 100 or so, they look pretty interesting. So it's totally plausible to me that, you know, we could do something like this, maybe even run the lows of this range, reclaim and back up, right? Like that to me is very interesting as a potential setup. I think that we're basically trading on the higher time frames. I think this is a pretty, yeah. So this range is pretty clean on the higher time frames here. You can see basically this consolidation below the mid-range, push above the mid-range, consolidate, take the all-time high, double top back inside. Makes sense to dip back below the mid-range before maybe continuing higher. But I don't see $500 Solana at any point in the next couple of months. And I still think it's worth asking, like, do you want to long this coin? Because if you pull up the Sol BTC chart, it just looks like the Sol ETH chart, you know, but in the past. So pretty easy for me to imagine this thing bouncing lower high into like a multi-year reaccumulation, you know, because you have this base demand down here. And I think it's worth asking yourself, like, do you want to own this like mega volatile asset? Like if it maybe wants to come all the way back down here on the ratio, like this would be a 66% dip from the top, right? So not that fun. But I was talking before about memes, right? And I think if you want to do stupid shit right now and you're like, well, I'm only going to hold stuff for a short time anyway. A lot of stuff in the meme universe looks pretty interesting. I'm going to pull up the Fartcoin chart here. Let me find the one with all of the data. So hell of a chart. Just absolute carnage, right? What are we down? We're down 90% from all-time highs, right? So we just speed ran an entire bear. FART is pretty interesting to me here. Here's the weekly chart. So you got a weekly order block here. Price thus far respecting the weekly order block, ran last week's low. It looks pretty interesting on the lower time frames, right? Now if I'm going to be a degen, like I would rather just long something like this. Like I have pretty clear stops here, right? Below the zone. And the upside is pretty nice, right? Like if we just look at the weekly here and all we do is just bounce to this prior demand right here. Like if all we do is just bounce there from here, that's 130% move. Now I'm not telling you to put your whole portfolio in Fartcoin, but I'm saying Bitcoin has puked a lot. It might puke a little more, sure, but I think that there's a good chance that selling has mostly subsided. We've seen the relative strength in alts. We've seen memes across the board just have been really, really strong. Like if I just pull open the meme section of my chart here, yeah, I mean, you do Peanuts up 19%, Popcats up 14%, Whiffs up 6%. And again, this is on a day where Bitcoin's down like 5%. So pretty interesting setup to be a degen right now. And I think if you're going to be a degen, kind of makes sense to full barbell it. The other stuff that got like mega murdered was like the AI coins. I think virtual is, kind of like basically your index of AI shenanigans. And it looks like the selling has, for the most part, subsided here. It's a bit of a failure for the momentum continuation. If we want to talk about ranges that we're working with, the December range is right here. I still remember early January where I was telling all of you guys in Alfalfa to get the fuck out of this coin around like 430, 420. Talked about how the range lows were going to be potentially what happened because you had a deviation above range high. You often get a deviation below the range low. And it's possible that this is now played out, right? So if you just look at this purely from a standpoint of trading 1 month's range, December, it is definitely possible that we just put in a little double bottom here and that we close back inside the range, right? Now, if this happens, the next target is typically the mid-range, 270. So again, this is a heck of a move from here. Like from here to 270, it's a 135% move. You could be safe, right? And there are going to be like nasty areas to watch out for, right? Like this supply is, maybe you don't want to assume we're going to trade all the way through supply, but 220 looks like we could go there. So yeah, I think the risk reward on some of this stuff from these levels is good. And again, like look at the low time frame chart here. Like this is the virtual Bitcoin chart. Does that look bearish to you? Doesn't look bearish to me. I mean, yeah, if I zoom out, it probably looks like ass, but I don't know. Looks kind of bottomy. So yeah, I guess the TLDR there is probably bullish alts. I think there's a couple interesting things to look at as far as other indicators that Bitcoin may have bottomed. I want to pull up a tweet here from Split Capital. I thought this was like a pretty interesting observation. So you've had this thing for a while where there's just been this like insane open interest build on Bitcoin futures. People are, probably just doing the basis trade like crazy. So basically the CM8 futures basis was way higher than the SEX futures basis, which is kind of weird. That basis sort of like unwound, and that basically caused a lot of people to dump Bitcoin ETFs, because if you're doing the basis trade, like what are you doing? You're like buying the spot, and you're buying ETFs if you're in TradFi land, and you're shorting the futures. So the unwind of that trade is to sell all of the ETFs, right? This is some serious hopium here for you guys. So yeah, paradoxical way, futures premium down, futures start getting bid, and ETFs start dumping. This is the reverse of the basis trade, which is bid ETF, short futures. The unwind of that is to bid the futures and short, or unwind, sell off the ETF, right? The other interesting thing of note here, this is pointed out by Abe Trade, Adam on Twitter, who I think is a great follow. There's been a really interesting correlation between mega red days on ETF outflows and bottoms in the market. Now, I can't see this chart very well because I'm colorblind, so I don't know what's a red line and a green line, but I do know that if you're looking at this, you're probably seeing a lot of red lines at or near local bottoms in Bitcoin price. And you could see that yesterday, I think was the largest outflow day ever. So for the most part, these outflow days have been reversion signals. Not necessarily a signal that you're going to have this continued puking, but that you may see like at least some mean reversion, at least a a relief rally, if not a significant permanent bottom. I'm not going to call it a significant permanent bottom here. The structure is bearish, right? I think as far as I'm concerned, you trade the structure. When that structure flips, you flip your bias. And I was willing to be bullish until that broke, and it broke, right? But that doesn't mean you can't get like huge tradable bounces, as I said earlier. And yeah, here's a chart of outflows, and you can see how huge the outflows here were on CoinGlass yesterday. Curious what that looks like today. So yeah, obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but if you do see this like subsiding of Bitcoin selling, maybe we just reclaim the range lows and chill out for a bit. With the setups we have on a lot of alts, it would not surprise me to see a big ripper. And I don't get the vibe that people are like overly positioned in alts right now. I think sentiment is pretty bad. I'm just going to check the chat real quick here. By the way, if you guys have any questions or chart requests, take advantage of the live episode. Feel free to drop them in. Leon Chan, where would you look to enter Sonic if you were bullish? Oh, wow, Sonic. I was bullish on this thing a while ago, but I tend to not have the patience to hold through this stuff. This fresh chart, baby. Fresh chart. Does Phantom have all of the data? Let me see. Okay. I mean, I got to tell you, like this high time frame chart, it doesn't look that bad. The main thing jumping out to me that is the worst thing, right, is that this bearish leg here, it delivered off like a pretty high time frame area of supply. This is some mega supply, right? This is like bear market mega capitulation supply. So the worry is always that the purpose of this leg up was just to mitigate this zone, and then it's over, right? And then you're just seeing like a retrace here, but this move isn't necessarily intending to go to all-time highs again. It's just a bounce, and then maybe this goes to new all-time lows. But there's a lot that looks pretty good on this chart. There's a lot that looks pretty good. I mean, this is basically like a high time frame, like triple bottom here, right? You got 1, you got 2, you got 3. I mean, this is a long way down. Don't get me wrong. It's still 77% down. But you had that. You put in your higher high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Not bad. It's always tricky to figure out, okay, like I am bullish, where do I want to jump in, right? This is a setup you see pretty commonly, and this would be a good thing to take notes on, right? But let's imagine you're bullish. So let's imagine this is the end of the weekly candle, right? We're about to start a new week. What we would have here would be a bullish weekly fair value gap. And this is a very high probability fair value gap because you've got a really big expansion candle. You have a consolidation candle that doesn't take the high of the expansion candle. So this is basically a consolidation after a big move. Oftentimes, the way that these moves continue is they run the lows of the consolidation, they rebalance and imbalance, and then go up, right? So if I were, again, like if I were imagining it's next week now, I'm looking for some type of setup to take place, right? So this could be an interesting area, right? Because you have an order block here, right? So imagine it's next week and, right, you get a little consolidation here and then this happens, right? This is your trigger. right? You see price moves into the zone. You ideally see like some bullish fair value gaps up here. Structural break, confirmation of the structure break, enter somewhere on that retrace, take it up. Maybe you have your invalidation below the zone. Now, as like a trader, like I'm probably only looking to maybe take that move, just to the range highs. But that's still a good trade, right? Like if you're able to get that here, that's still over a 2-to-1 trade. If you're a spot guy and you're zoomed out, I mean, you could still buy spot there. Like buying spot at weekly levels is generally a good thing. Buying spot at 1 hour levels of support. Yeah. Ideally you're buying your spot at monthly levels or weekly levels. So if you think you're about to have bullish continuation here and you get a weekly fair value gap, a bullish fair value gap, then buying, somewhere in this 66, 60s sort of range becomes a good level, because if your bias is correct, you're going to tap that gap and go, and then maybe put in a new high. So yeah, I think the chart looks pretty good. Like I said, the main thing is I don't know if this was the end of the move here and this is just going to be like a higher low, because you could definitely see this turning into like a little kind of head and shoulders triple top there, right? We put in a lower high. So I don't know that I'll be longing this thinking it's going to go all the way back up, but like the setup on a retrace, it does look good to just long into a lower high. And yeah, sure, if you're bullish on this thing, then maybe hold a spot back for higher, who knows? But I don't know that any of these alts or, most of these alts are ever going to kind of permanently go to new all-time highs again. And that should generally be your default mindset when trading these bad boys. Okay. Daniel Spooner, Sonic is the fastest blockchain right now. A lot of money moved off Solana and ETH into Sonic recently. Yeah, and this was always like one of my key worries about Solana, is that like competing on like a performance basis is kind of hard. People are just going to keep making like cheaper, faster shit. A lot of what Ethereum has is stuff that like can't be replicated, sort of similar to what Bitcoin's got going on. So you're always playing this like hot ball of money game. I always loved Phantom. I loved the Phantom tech, and I had a lot of fun farming Phantom back in the day. That was a fun ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, I was talking about Sonic in the Alpha Discord last summer, or Phantom, I guess, saying it was kind of similar Solana vibes, because you had this complete nuking of the entire ecosystem. All the apps kind of died and the TVL left, but like there was still a bunch of developers hanging around building stuff, and there's still like kind of like an interesting community there. So cool project. I've heard rumors that Sonic is working on quantum AI projection. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Not quite in my lane. All right. What else did I have here on the agenda? Okay, let me do a quick overview on some trade updates. So MSTR, I was bullish, I was long. That trade was bad, and I am out of that trade once we kind of broke this low. That was a line in the sand for me. This was kind of like playing into the Bitcoin bias I had before. And we talked about some of the setup from an options perspective, where if this started going, or Bitcoin started going, this thing could really go on a tear. Yeah, didn't work out. Not all trades are winners. I'm probably done with MSTR for a bit, to be honest. I think Andy Constant is right about this thing. I think it's a very, very, very attractive trade if it goes back to like the 130 or so level and the premium goes back to 1 or negative. Like this thing with a negative premium down here, you should probably make a mental note of this, maybe set some alarms or something. If we get a bad sell-off and the sort of larger markets and this thing goes down in this zone and the premium goes negative, like, whoo, that could be very, very saucy. But, I talk about this a lot. with regards to trading trends in general. When you're getting on board a trade, there's a couple ways to do it, right? Way number one is like you're able to catch a trade in some sort of demand zone, ride it up to liquidity. And then the other way is to sort of hop on board a trade that is already in progress, right? So when this expansion takes place and you get a retracement here, you don't know if this is actually going to be a retracement to go higher or if this is basically the start of the sell-off, right? So if price is done expanding, then what's going to happen is you get price coming all the way back down into prior demand, you have an accumulation, and maybe you go again, right? But price very often just stops around the mid-range, dips into the mid-range to rebalance imbalances, and then it kind of zips back up and then goes again, right? So getting long in areas like this, which is kind of where we're getting long, we're getting long around the mid-range after a reaction off an imbalance, thinking that that was probably going to maybe be a catalyst to go higher. Once that fails, right, then it starts looking like you're in scenario 2 and you're going back to the origin of demand, right? And then you're going to start this sort of market maker model again where you have accumulation, some sort of manipulation, and then you start the expansion again. So that's why it's good, I think, at this point to look to get back into this thing around 130. I will say one thing that I missed on this that was a good catch from some people. I wasn't even thinking about this because it feels like it shouldn't be relevant. Why is MSTR then the same as MSTR now? You had this kind of like sweep of the prior all-time high. This chart has a penchant for doing shit that looks like this, right? Did it here? Did it as recently as last bull run? Mega move up, all the way back down. So maybe we have a rally in March. Maybe it puts in one of these like lower highs again, right? But then ultimately rolls over. Probably the most logical thing for me right now. This is probably like, if you get it, this is probably a really interesting short setup, because if you view this as like higher time frame supply, right? This is basically the up move that put in this protected high that caused a breakdown outside of the range. And you have a lot of liquidity sitting here in this range above the mid range. So yeah, so some sort of move into the kind of 370 region. Like if we get a pump in March or April or whenever this is, that looks really interesting as a short. Because if you're right on that, like if you are right, and this does just give you a clean little setup, I mean, and we go all the way back down to the origin, I mean, that's a maybe like a 4-to-1 trade there. So something to keep an eye on for sure. And I think I gotta put a little note to myself here. Short question mark. All right, cool. So we're out of that one. I mean, other trades we've been in from the pod, Baba just still looks really good. So this has been a huge winner. So thankful for Baba still holding this one. I think 187 looks maybe interesting to shave some profits off of. The mid range here, 225 is the other kind of area I was looking at. But yeah, this looks really good right now. Other thing we forgot to talk about today was Nvidia earnings, which were basically on the chart was like a gigantic nothing burger. You can kind of see what happened on the NASDAQ there. We put in this like Darth Maul candle. The call buyers and the put buyers both going to leave empty-handed. Nobody makes any money. There's like kind of two ways, I think, to interpret Nvidia earnings. The first is that they said they're doing a bunch of stock buybacks and doesn't seem like a lot of CapEx. And The question would be, why are you doing that if you're so bullish on AGI? So maybe a bearish take. But the bullish take is that this was a kind of event where there could have been a lot of negative downside, and that maybe now that that cloud has been lifted, maybe that could be a catalyst for Bitcoin to put in like a little temporary bottom here. I don't know how to call the exact low here. I still think this 80K number, gun to my head, probably where we bottom. I don't want to see probably, because you're calling bottoms in these like imbalance areas. It's like you're just trading. You're trading where there's no volume, right? So price often goes into this and whips back out of it pretty quickly. And then sometimes just goes straight through it to the, where there was previous demand, kind of way down here. I like 80K, but like if we bottomed here, it would surprise me 0%. Focus right now is not really on bottom ticking Bitcoin. It's I think identifying some altcoins that you want to be long and buying them in a way where you assume that there will be another leg down on Bitcoin. So, keep your stops a little wide if you're on leverage. Don't be full position size, like leave some cash to buy if we go lower, and just be happy if you buy here and it just goes up only. Don't be sad that you didn't get your full position on. But yeah, that's kind of my framework for the next few weeks is expecting a local bottom in Bitcoin, expecting a strong altcoin rally off of that bottom, and then expecting that we put in a lower high on Bitcoin, open to the idea that we may have like a very big move up that catches people off guard. We go to like 105K or something, right? That's what that felt like here when we broke down from this range, closed below the range, back here in May, and put in this big move all the way almost up to range highs before ultimately dumping back down, doing it again. People got bullish again. And then finally, we go back up. So probably the base case for this, for the next few weeks. I'm assuming the playbook is just going to be the same again, which is that you buy in the summer and you get a fall move and maybe sell again in the fall. I know it seems weird to think that the same fucking shit's going to happen again, but it keeps happening. So I think that has to be the default game plan. I think if we flip 100K and start like holding above here, it's probably like a mega long signal. That's about where I'd feel comfortable flipping long. The other thing you have to be worried about on the short side, or if you're longing, right, is you're gonna run into this meme trend line at some point. So maybe that trend line, maybe we kind of peak above it into supply, and that is sort of the catalyst down, right? So a break of that trend line, a clearing of this supply zone that caused the dump, that's really, really bullish for me. And I probably just shove all in with both hands, right? So that's scenario one, where I go really, really long again. Scenario two is just like summer, everything dies. Probably just looking to buy some spot at these key levels here. Again, like, 77, low 70s is an area of interest to me. And then like, 60, like low 60s, very high 50s is an area as well. Just having some cash to buy these, and then all these these buys, they probably just age so well in the very long run, because I just think it's inevitable that politicians sort of like keep printing money. And with that, I will bring up the sort of final scenario that I think could play out. And this was something that I think a lot of people are thinking. It's something I've been thinking for a while, but Jonah posted this today. I'm ready to bet the farm on this. Donald Trump is not going to preside over a 2008 style crash. That is not his preferred legacy. He has all the tools at his disposal to prevent one. Thus, if things start to look bad, they don't yet, buy everything you can with leverage the second you start to see signs of fiscal stimulus or quantitative easing. And I think as my boy Darius Dale of 42 Macro has put it in the past, you don't buy when you see blood in the streets. You buy when you hear the sound of the ambulance sirens approaching in the distance, right? So the way this rigged economy works, the way that all the political incentives work is that we kick the can, and we have the tools to kick the can because it's not a free market. We all participate in a bit of a rigged system. We can just pull some levers and make number go up again. We mortgage from the future to do so. But in the present, it causes number to go up. And if you do see a crash, like if I see a crash, again, I don't think this is a crash. Stocks are basically at all-time highs. TLT has not blown out. The whole bunch of stuff has not happened yet, right? But if that happens, you just watch for the pivot and then you just go all in. So those are your three scenarios on how to get balls long again. Until then, keep an eye out for the altcoin bounce in the coming weeks. Hopefully I'm right on that, but don't bet the farm on that. I'm heavy cash. I'm trying to play alts for a trade right now. I still have all of my spot Bitcoin. Don't ever want to sell that again, probably, unless something really, really dumb happens. And I want to use most of my free cash in the coming months to basically buy more Bitcoin. I just don't think stocks look amazing to me at these prices. Maybe if we get a mega stock market nuke, I don't know, maybe that would be a good time to buy some stocks. But I'm just always at the point where anytime that happens, there's a situation created where like Bitcoin just wants to go up more. So I just end up buying Bitcoin. And oh, by the way, like altcoins in particular will do very, very well if that happens, because that would basically be a return to QE, which has not happened yet. But if that does, you got to think we're just going to run back 2021. So yeah, don't be all in right now. Don't even be close to all in right now, and be prepared for that scenario. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. It was fun to do this live again. If you enjoyed this, this is basically what we do constantly in the Magic Lines Discord. Put out a video at least once a week. A bunch of thoughts on the market, trade plans. I give trade ideas live, a lot of charts, do chart requests for you as well. And then also teach people how to trade, teach you how to do this yourself. So if you like that, sounds like it might be attractive to you, feel free to go to magiclines.xyz/IL. And you can try it free for 7 days now. Got a 7-day trial. If you think it sucks, it's okay. I won't be offended. If you think it doesn't suck, but it's just too much money, also won't be offended. But please give it a shot. Support your local content creator. I got a mini Aussie to take care of here. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye now.